I felt a huge void in the connection I wanted to feel with the community.
Hi, I'm Gracie Mercedes, and welcome back to Not Blank Enough, a podcast about everyday insecurities and triumphs. In this episode, I'm talking with Liz Hernandez. The Mexican-American Emmy-nominated TV personality and journalist talks about what it was like being a tomboy from a big family, how she moved on from her dream job to pursue a passion project, and what it's like being single in the time of COVID. I hope you enjoy this intimate conversation we titled Not Connected Enough. And if you do enjoy or have enjoyed any episode thus far, I would so appreciate it if you can leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. I really hope for these important conversations to reach the biggest audience possible, and the more rates and reviews we get, the better the chances of that happening. Thank you so much in advance, and stay tuned for an afterthought from me after today's conversation. How are you?
I'm good. Given the circumstances, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. So many interviews have started that way. We're all good given the circumstances.
Absolutely. I mean, I think as long as you're healthy and, doing your best to stay in high spirits despite the pandemic, the politics, everything that's happening, you just have to focus on what's good in the world.
Exactly. I love that. Welcome to Not Blank Enough.
Yes.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I haven't seen you in forever in real life.
I know.
Mean, I don't think we've seen each other since Access Hollywood, which is how we know each other. And it's funny because as I'm doing this show and telling my audience how I know my guest, I'm like, whoa, I've had a lot of jobs. I've had a lot of jobs all over the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a 6-month stint on Access Hollywood and Access Hollywood Live where I would do these little style segments. And you are a host or were a host on Access Hollywood and Access Hollywood Live. And so that's how we met. We got to work together.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so crazy because it just seems like lifetimes ago now. But
yeah, tell me a little bit about hosting and how you even got into TV hosting, because you've been doing that mostly, right?
So it started with radio. In college, I did an internship, like a fluke internship, and an internship turned into a paid internship, turned into, hey, mom and dad, I think this might actually go somewhere. I think I'm falling in love with radio. And I had really great supportive parents who said, okay, we'll support you in following your dream. And I stayed an extra year. I double majored in communications. And then I got an opportunity to go host a morning show up north. That I was there for maybe 5 months, and then Power 106 called. I got the job, and then I was there for 10 and a half years. And while I was in radio, I started working for MTV. MTV led to E-News. E-News, well, it was a little bit of just being on radio. It's kind of like the best promotional tool you can have because you're talking to millions of people. And then E-News landed me at Access Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
So I've had a lot of jobs too, Gracie.
I don't know if I knew that you were at MTV first.
Yeah, that's actually
That's
actually how I met Damien. I actually hosted TRL with him, co-hosted TRL.
Oh my God.
Yes.
How do I not know this? Wait, maybe I do know this. I also have a terrible memory.
Yeah, my very first time on TRL was with Damien.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Okay, yes. Now it's all coming back to me. I totally remember that now.
Yeah.
Did we talk about this at Access? Because
I don't think we did.
Oh, that is so weird. So, but you're from California. You're originally from out here,
Born
correct?
and raised, correct.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about that, about your upbringing and where in California are you from?
Riverside, which is an hour east of Los Angeles. Just grew up in a huge Latin family. I have 3 older sisters, plus my mom. That was 5 women in the house. And then, you have your grandparents. My dad's from a family of 16. My mother's from a family of 10. We always had cousins, uncles, aunts, second cousins, just grew up in such a tribe that I think is what kind of molded me into having a yearning to have community and to be able to communicate and just to share so much like culture. And that was me in a nutshell, pretty much. I mean, camping on the weekends.
Camping on the weekends, is that a thing we do in Riverside?
That's a thing you do when you have big families. Because all my dad's brothers, like us, had 4 more kids. And so when you have, I think my dad has like 9 brothers, and they all are, like, we all grew up in the Riverside, Corona area. So what do you do every weekend? And we were all around the same age. Everyone had a camper. And
Wow.
so we would drive the campers to Rosarito Beach, to Campground of America, and we would camp all the time.
But that sounds like a lot of fun.
It was a
And
lot of fun.
you're constantly entertained by your own family, which is awesome.
Yeah, it was.
And what are your family? Are you Mexican American?
Mexican
Are you born?
American.
Yeah,
I
you were
was
born
born
here.
here,
Yeah.
first generation.
Yeah, me too, me too. My family was born in, both my parents were born in Dominican Republic, but my mom came here pretty young, so she's pretty Americanized, I feel like.
Yeah, same with my mom. My mom came here when she was, I think, like 9. So yeah.
So going with the theme of the show, Not Blank Enough, in your childhood, in your early days, surrounded by this big family, were there ever moments back then that you can remember of feeling not blank enough, and what was that blank?
You know, of course. I mean, I think back to when my oldest sister, her and I are 6, 7 years apart. So there was really like an age gap between me and my sisters. And my oldest sister and I are 15 years apart. So it was really having sisters that were also my role models and my caregivers. And so you start to see them go through the stages of life. And they were all so different. But the sister that was closest to me, she was very, and I say this, like, even when I think about it, like, just very all-American, even though we were Mexican. Like, she was on the cheerleading squad, and she
Yes.
loved to do pageants. And, that was a thing back in the early 90s,
Right.
I was very much a tomboy growing up. We grew up in a cul-de-sac full of boys, and I was riding my BMX bike and getting dirty, and I was really rough around the edges when I was younger. So to see my sister be so classy and proper, I guess there was that part of me that kind of felt, I don't know, but it's weird. Even though I think I dabbled in that a little bit, but I came right back into my comfort zone of like, no, I'm actually comfortable being this.
Yeah. But so maybe you felt a little bit not girly enough.
Not girly enough. Yeah. There was always
Yeah.
that, I think, part of me that I never felt, like feminine. Like, I was just like, God, I'm such a bulldozer. I come in like the bull in the china shop. Like, I was klutzy. I talked a lot. Yeah. So there was
I
that.
totally relate to that. I was very similar as a kid. I was such a little tomboy, and my best friend was a boy. And to this day, like, dresses are my least favorite thing to wear. And I love jeans and a t-shirt. And back then I grew up in Brooklyn. So our fun time was like on a stoop, or riding your bike right in front of the house, or, going to the park. And so my knees, I still have scars all over my knees from like falling on concrete and just being like rough with boys all the time. Even to this day, even when I'm like all dressed up or whatever, I mean, we don't do much of that these days, but before COVID, when I would get dressed up for an event or something, I still have this thing where I feel like, oh, I'm not very girly. I'm not girly enough.
Mm-hmm. It feels like a facade. Like, it's
like
so,
I'm faking it.
Yeah. It's so interesting, especially because what I did for a living, like, I felt like I was playing dress up all the time. Like, I never felt in my element when I had to put on heels and a dress and makeup. It just felt like I was getting into character.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
When I would get home and put on a t-shirt and jeans, it's like, okay, now I'm back to being me.
Yep. Oh, that makes so much sense, especially in that world of TV hosting, where I feel like they, more than anything, makes the women very feminine and very like, you're almost always wearing a dress or a skirt and top, and your hair's done up and your makeup's done up, and it is very quote unquote girly in a sense. So
Absolutely.
Oh my God, I relate to that so much. And I remember being super uncomfortable on Access Hollywood because I was like, I have to wear a dress. I have to wear a dress. I have to look a certain way. I think eventually I kind of settled in and just made it my own as far as what I wore. But I always had that feeling of like, yeah, I don't think I'm dressed the way I should be for this, but I'm just going with it.
Yeah, you almost feel like someone's going to figure you out, especially because I came from radio where it was such a fraternity and it was like all, and I think, again, it like mirrors your life. Like, I grew up in a cul-de-sac with all boys, and then I was on a morning show with all boys. Even though I grew up in such a tribe of strong women, I knew that, again, you can't really change how you're molded as a child. I was really close with my dad, and I had a lot of male influence in my life as well as female, but that's where I felt my most comfortable. And again, because I think back now, like, I remember my sister was like, you should just try to like do one pageant. And that was probably one of my most
Did you do it?
humiliating moments. There was two people. Like, it was basically like me and this one, like, it was just such like a what my dad would call Mickey Mouse pageant. That's my dad's word for like something that's like very put together last minute.
Yeah.
And it was like, nope, never again. This is not my world. I almost did it just to, I think, make my sister proud and to a little bit prove to myself that I was enough. Maybe I don't really know what that, and again, I'm also one of those people that like, I'll try anything once, twice if I love it, but I definitely knew that was not my lane. And it was like, just went all the way to the left after that. Like, nope, gonna stick to riding bikes. And that's why I think I felt so comfortable in radio. And then you get thrown into, and MTV isn't too much of a transition because it's still very, you're like almost radio DJs on air.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like most of the VJs came from radio, or a lot of them did. Yeah.
Right. And so you didn't have to be super feminine, but once you go to national television, it's like, okay, totally
Put
different.
you in this dress.
Yeah. Cinch the waist and fluff the hair. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's so interesting. And then for radio, did you just show up in sweats and because no one sees you, right?
The worst, Gracie. I didn't even wear makeup. And I had probably ruined every epic photo that I have because we had so many amazing guests come on our show.
Oh, right.
And I look back on these photos and I'm like, oh my God, Elizabeth, couldn't you have just put chapstick on? Like, God. But I was always in leggings. I was in Jordans or like Nike, like some kind of like just tennis shoes and oversized t-shirt.
I love it. And am I being honest, I'm surprised to hear this from you because from what I knew from you from Access and just from what I see of you on Instagram, of course, we all know Instagram is not 100% real, but you do come off very feminine and very like a girl who would love to be in dresses and have her hair and makeup done. So I'm so surprised funny. And I love hearing this.
So funny. I actually tried now with my company now, which is Wordful, like I try to really just tone it down back to like t-shirt, jeans, like things I feel comfortable in. Of course, you still want to be presentable, but yeah, I try to do what's more me. Like,
So then, okay, let's go into your work life. So you mentioned some amazing jobs. You were on radio, which is so fun. And then you went to MTV in New York. And so then how long did you live in New York before you came
I
back
was
here?
bi-coastal. So it was really crazy. I auditioned for MTV and they said, okay, you got it. We need to move you to New York. Yeah. And I said, oh no, I can't move to New York. I just got hired at Power 106 like 2 years ago and I'm starting to make a name for myself. Or maybe I was already like 2-3 years in. And so they said, okay, well, all bets are off. And I cried for like 2 weeks. And then this woman by the name of Wendy McSwain called me back and she said,
I know Wendy.
Okay, you know Wendy.
Yeah.
She called me back and she said, we're willing to work something out with you. We'll make you our first LA correspondent. And you'll do bi-coastal. You'll come to New York, you'll do TRL, Direct Effect, and the VMAs, and then we'll fly you home. And you kind of just go back and forth. I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So
that is so incredible that they did that. Yeah, I do remember Wendy. She was awesome. Wait, so what years were you at MTV? I feel like we might have been there at the same time.
I want to say I started in 2005 or 6. And then was there till 2009.
So I just missed you. I left in 2005, the end of 2005 to move to Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
Which is why I didn't think about that because I was like, I would have known you. How did I miss that? But yeah, okay, that totally makes sense that you got there right when I left. And that was around the time Carlos also got there for MTV Tres. Do you know Carlos Santos?
I knew of him. So I did MTV Tres as well.
Yeah. Okay, that's so funny. Okay, and then how did Access Hollywood come about?
Once I was done with MTV, about 2011, I want to say, E! News had me audition. And I got the job with E! News, and I was there for 2 years. And because E! News and Access Hollywood are all under the NBC Universal family umbrella, I went over there and I came highly recommended from E! News. And so auditioned, got the job, and the rest is history.
Did you find anything about TV hosting as opposed to radio DJing more challenging, more intimidating, or were they both equally as fun and not, I don't want to say easy, but were you just comfortable in both of them?
both had their pros and cons. So with radio, by the time I had left, like I said, I'd already been there 10 and a half years. And I felt like I was doing radio with my eyes closed and it didn't challenge me anymore. And it was changing, like the format. Like when I first started in radio, you would talk for 7-minute breaks, which now is just unheard of. And you would have real conversations and the audience would call up and they would chime in. And there was just this beautiful exchange that was constantly happening between our morning show in the city of Los Angeles. And you were celebrating Laker parades, you were swearing in the first Black president, there was just these monumental moments that were happening and high emotions that you were sharing with one another. And I noticed when I went to television, I lost that element. So now you're just telling stories about celebrities only, and there is no real exchange. There's no phones lighting up for people to say, oh, you got your heart broken too? I did too, girl. You need to leave him, or whatever the story was,
Totally.
What I loved most about television was every day there was something exciting happening when it came to being, and for me it was always music. Anytime I got to interview like a Lionel Richie or the Mariah Careys or whatever artist it was, to me that was always super exciting. And because The Voice was a part of the NBC family, it was like I was seeing Gwen Stefani every Tuesday. Oh
my God.
So for me that part was really exciting, but I felt a huge void in the connection I wanted to feel with the community. That's how I started a passion project, which was Wordful. And I thought, what if I can just go back to talking about things that matter to me?
Yeah, tell me more about Wordful.
So Wordful started just probably, I don't know, maybe a year after I was at Access. I just decided that I was going to do these 60-second little YouTube videos about one word and talk about what I was learning from that word, what that word meant to me, how I was growing from it, the lesson, whatever it was, and just share it. And then it started to get a really great response. And simultaneously, I had noticed, this is still when we had websites and Instagram was really just kind of taking off, at least for me. People were constantly asking me questions like, how did you transition from radio to television? Or every question you can kind of think of under the sun that people want to know. And I just thought, what if I can put together an event where I can actually answer these questions live? Because I missed that connection. I missed the storytelling. And so I threw the first event and 350 people showed up. And that's when I knew that I wasn't the only one yearning for connection. I think people in general were yearning for connection. And so to kind of see that simultaneous people gravitating towards Wordful, and it was just, again, a small passion project to begin with, and these events, I knew there was something special happening there. But then my company took a back seat for like a year. And again, it wasn't even a company then. It was just, again, a passion project. Like within a month that I got hired at Access, my mom was diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's. And so by the time I was starting to, Wordful was finding its legs, my mom got really sick. She started on hospice. So I took a whole year off from Wordful, and it just kind of like that, the project just went away. And then once my mom started to stabilize, I brought it back. And I started to feel, or maybe I started to realize, that I was enjoying spending more time with the passion project than I was being on television talking about Harry Styles. No offense to Harry Styles.
No, I totally get it.
And the more and more I felt out of alignment, the more and more the energy just began to shift.
And so then did you just decide you're gonna 100% devote yourself to your company and to Wordful?
So it really started to kind of everything started to unlatch. It was it wasn't just, it was just one of those things where I could tell that they knew I wasn't into it anymore. I was checked out. And so it was yes, let me just go and give 100% to this company. Because, with Alzheimer's, my mother was losing her language. She had maybe 10 words left in her vocabulary. And it made me really realize oh my God, I've launched a company called Words Are Powerful, and my mother's losing her words. And what is my message out into the world? Because I know it can't just all be about celebrity divorces. That for me was a huge shove from the universe.
So I got to tell you that really resonates with me, because I went to NYU for broadcast journalism. I thought I wanted to be a TV reporter. And then right out of college, I got a job at ABC News and quickly realized I didn't want to do serious news for the rest of my life because it was so depressing and it was a lot for me to take. I'm such an empath. I'm so sensitive. I was like, I can't do this every day of my life. So that's how I transitioned to MTV, because I ended up working at MTV News. I was like, oh, well, entertainment news, this will be fun. And then moved to LA. And I came out here to be an actor slash TV host. Like I really loved hosting. I did little things here and there for E! News Now and then for Style Network. It all became more and more style focused, which is how I landed that little style segment on Access, which was like selling clothes, basically, selling clothes and beauty products. And it was that job that made me realize I didn't want to be a host, because not that it was a horrible job. It was a great job. Everyone was really nice. But I was like, I'm only here once a week for, I think I was there like maybe an hour at a time. And it felt so not fulfilling to me. I was like, this is not fulfilling anything that I want to do. And then I started thinking, but would I be happy if I had Liz's job, or if I had, someone else, Kat Sadler is a good friend of mine. If I had Kat's job. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, ugh, I don't think that's for me, because of that same reason, where I felt like I don't want to just talk about celebrities or to celebrities. I think I want to, connect with people on a different level. And acting gives me that for sure. But that's when I decided to kind of not pursue hosting anymore. And then that's when I started writing like personal stories, and started meeting other writers and getting into that world. I was like, oh, this is a wonderful way to connect and tell stories and make sure other people's stories are told. So I feel you, girl. I mean, you definitely did it way more than I ever came close to doing it. But it's funny because even just a taste of it made me be like, yeah, no, this is not it for me.
And sometimes that's all you need. I think,
Yeah.
At the time, I thought I was just fulfilling what was great opportunities. It was like I was following the trajectory of my career. It's kind of like how we have this perception of how the American dream is, or societal dreams are. Like, okay, you go out, you go to school, you go to college, you find your person, you get married, you have kids, and you live happily ever after, and then you die. And it's like we have this ingrained in us, and we're taught that. So it was like, I was supposed to go to college, get a good job in radio. It's supposed to transition into television, and then, whatever. You live happily ever after in your career. That doesn't always equal happess. Like you say, you leave days and you're just like, I feel really empty, or like, what the heck was I just talking about? Right. You know what I mean? Like, I felt really icky. Like I never gravitated towards entertainment news. I was just good at whatever I applied myself towards. I was good at communicating. I was good at storytelling. But it's not like I was that girl who went out and bought the People magazine. It's just that wasn't me. And so to sit there and like, I'll never forget. I remember one time having to interview someone about their divorce, and I just felt I wanted to go home and shower afterwards. And that's when I was like, yeah, that doesn't feel good. You're invading somebody's privacy, unless you're sitting down and they want to share with you. I don't want to be the gotcha journalist.
And honestly, I feel like even if it doesn't even turn into the journalism part, sometimes people just evolve out of their jobs. Because, I mean, I'll talk for my husband for a second, but like Damien had a similar trajectory that you did. He started in radio, did that for a really long time, kind of just auditioned for MTV, honestly, because someone told him you should. And he was like, I don't know if I want to be on TV. And then, of course, that's the person who gets the job, right? And he did it for 7 years. And I remember we were together. I mean, I was already at MTV when he got the job. So I've known him forever. But when we started dating was towards the end of his time there. And I remember his last year there. And, he would come home from like interviewing the biggest celebrities in the world, like Jay-Z, Tom Cruise, Beyonce, and just kind of be bored or miserable. And I'm just like, oh God, yeah. It's so funny how you can have what seems to be the coolest, most amazing job. And it was, and he loved his time there and is very grateful for his time there. But sometimes that's enough. And you have to know when to walk away or to move to something different. And now he's a comedy writer, and he has been for 7 years and loves it. So it's like, you'll find your thing.
Yeah. Well, I think with any job, whether it's, and again, in the lane that we're speaking of, you're missing that authentic connection, because everyone's showing up in character, right? So like he's showing up as a VJ on MTV, that person, the Jay-Z, the Beyonce, whoever, the Tom Cruise, they're showing up as their personas. And so there's never this real exchange that's happening, and I even feel like that's kind of what happens in today's world of social media. It's like, we're not really seeing the realness that we all yearn for. It's like we're more connected than ever, but we're talking through filters, we're talking through people's greatest moments, through their highlight reels, and we're missing the big opportunity to connect to one another. And I think that's what happens in jobs as well.
So then during all this time, like going back to the theme of the podcast, was it a feeling, would you say there was like a feeling of feeling either not fulfilled enough or not connected enough? Like how would you label that feeling you had back then?
Just to go on record, like Access was amazing. Like I loved everyone I worked with. It was not like anything personal. It was actually everything personal. It was what was going on with me and what was going on in my life. You know, I had this moment, Gracie, where I was on stage, and I'll never forget it. I was going back and forth with the person I was hosting with, and I think we got into kind of like a debate about, you know, they didn't like Harry Styles tattoos. And I was like, who cares? Like, if that's what he wants, like, but they were just like, no, that's like, why would he get that? And I just remember like, why am I having this argument with you? Like, this is so ridiculous. And now we're going to do a whole segment on Harry Styles tattoos. Like, what am I doing with my life? And again, like, I think it's awesome for somebody that wants to do that. Because I get it. There's a whole plethora of people out there that want to know about Harry's tattoos, and they really do care. And that's beautiful too. Like, I'm not against it. But I just knew that like time is ticking, and every day I was counting down the minutes because I was also caregiving for my mother. Time was really precious to me. And so I was really aware of how I was spending my time. And I think, again, everything happens for a reason.
And also having that experience with your mom, I'm sure also brings up that idea, that very true notion, like life is short. Like we have to be doing what we want to be doing at all times, I feel like, and really follow our hearts and our guts. And if possible, because, you know, not everyone has that luxury to be able to leave a job they don't feel happy in. But if you do have that opportunity or that ability to pursue something else or to make money some other way that fulfills you more, makes you happy, then you have to go for it.
Yeah. I mean, even when I left, I wasn't like I had a bunch of money put aside. Like I really kind of just jumped head first. You know? Yeah.
I've been there, girl. Still there. I'm still doing it. Still like, hey, sure, I'll try this. How are you feeling these days now with Wordiful? Like what's going on with Wordiful right now?
I'm really excited and just proud of I feel it's like the little train that could, you know, it's like chugging its way up the hill. Prior to quarantine, it kind of felt, I don't even know how to describe it. I was kind of just in shock. Like I couldn't believe what was manifesting out of it. Like we had just done a tour across the United States with it. We had taken it to Miami. We went to Chicago. We went to New York, San Diego, and it just, to see the impact it was having in so many lives just felt so incredible. And we had plans to go to Hawaii in May and do another tour in 2020. And then, of course, you know, COVID hit. Luckily, I was working on bringing Wordful online prior to quarantine. And then I guess you want to call it divine timing. And what I mean by taking it online was I wanted, because I'm here in Los Angeles, it's hard for me to constantly be traveling to all these other states to be as present as I am with the women and men here. So I just thought, what if there was a way where I could bring the community all online and we could have these conversations? And then, like I said, quarantine hit and we just continued to work on the project, and now it's available online, which is so exciting. And we launched a membership.
Congratulations. That's awesome. So people can go online, sign up, and then is it like workshops led by you, or like what is it exactly?
You can either do a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription. And what we do is it's 12 months of different topics. So the first month is all focused on gratitude. So there's different modules. And then the first module is recorded meditations. There are recorded affirmations. There's a podcast. There's content videos. We're adding a playlist. There are just all these different things. There's downloadable worksheets. And then for the yearly members, we basically do a Zoom event. So everyone can see each other. We're a community. We can talk about what we're struggling with. It's more about, again, leaning into our stories being our superpower. And there's so much connection that can happen when we listen to what other people have been through and realize like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one going through that.
Yep.
And so then September will be self-care. October would be mental wellness. So
Oh, wow.
every month changes, and basically we're doing the healing work together.
I love this because when you're talking about it, obviously no one can see you but me, but your face just like lit up. It was so cute to see. Like, it was like, oh, she loves what she's doing. I love that.
do.
That's so exciting to me. It's like, this is what you're meant to be doing.
It's
like,
my baby, and I feel
Yeah.
because I've done a lot of this already. I mean, I'm doing the work side by side with the members in the community, but this is where, yeah, I come alive, and I just know that I've been so grateful to have learned so much from different mentors, and now to also bring, and that's the other thing, like bringing all these mentors on board with me, like doing podcasts with them and offering sessions with them. And if no one knew what exercise was, and all of a sudden you're like, yo, have you tried this thing called riding a bike or running? I have to tell you about it. It
Right.
feels so good.
Right.
It's like that. It's like wanting to just share the tools that I've learned. And you get so
Yeah.
excited because you see how much growth and change happens in your own life. And it's great to be able to share that.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. So everyone needs to go check it out. Is it just wordiful.com?
Wordiful.com. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Okay, we talked a little bit about your childhood and being a little bit of a tomboy, not feeling girly enough, which I love. And then transitioning into adulthood and working in television and maybe not feeling, we didn't really land on anything, but maybe not feeling connected enough.
Well, I think there's always going to be these little enoughs and big enoughs. You know, it's like now more than ever, the one thing I've been looking at is, and I think a lot of my friends we look at, is having to date. Well, you don't have to worry about this, you're married, but dating during quarantine is
Ooh, I
just another beast. I mean,
How do you even do that? I have a couple of single friends, but they're all handling it very differently.
I want to hear. Can you please share?
I'm like, without outing. Well, one is like just doesn't leave her house and not dating at all, basically. And then the other one already had a couple people in rotation. And so she just kind of kept those same people in rotation.
Okay.
And then like a friend of hers, though, is being real, like, I would say crazy, but we can call it brave or just dumb. I don't know. But she's like full on, like just meeting people like she was before on Tinder or whatever and hanging out with them. And I'm just like, that seems insane to me because I would be afraid to do that before COVID. So now I can't even imagine.
Right.
But yeah, what has that been like? How are you handling this?
Well, it's really interesting because I would never, ever, ever have thought I would have been a person to go on any kind of dating app. I was like,
Right.
Nope, not for me. I believe in like just meeting people the old fashioned way.
Right.
But I got on and it's been very interesting. I've met some really nice people and I've met some also very questionable people who are just like, why are you even on here?
Right.
And then again, it's also where I think you do start to go back in your old archives, like, maybe they have a friend or, or maybe this person wasn't so bad. It's like, oh my God, stop. Yeah.
Now that we're in a global pandemic, maybe he wasn't that bad. That's amazing.
I mean, I'm at the point where I might go out and buy me a volleyball and call it Wilson and just put it in the living room.
I love it. Well, it's funny because I do get a lot, well, you're fine because you're married. So I'm like, yeah, people who are married or in relationships with people they live with right now during quarantine, we have all kinds of other problems because it's just like, I'm literally like, Damien, go get an Airbnb and leave for 2 weeks. I cannot see your face another second. It's the opposite issue.
Right.
We're just like, you're with this one person, especially in the beginning of all this where we weren't doing anything. I mean, now I feel like we're social distancing with our friends or we're eating at restaurants outside. But, the first couple of months, it was like 24/7, me and him. And I think by week 4, I was like, okay,
Right.
you're going to stay in this room.
Them chewing is like, do you have to do that?
I'm like, please go stay in that room for the rest of the day. I'm going to be in this room. You stay in that room. So, quarantine is not working
Right.
for anyone.
Right.
I don't know anyone that's having a good quarantine time.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, everything, it's, what is it? The grass is greener, but everything has its pros and cons. But
right.
I mean, I'm definitely happy to be in the space that I'm in. I have no complaints, but I will say it has made me braver getting out of my comfort zone of being like, okay, if this is the new norm, like how will you meet people? And it's cool. Like I've actually feel like I've made, weirdly enough, like new friends as well, where it's like, well, you're not potentially my soulmate.
Right.
I think we'll actually be really good friends, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like I've gotten closer to friends, girl, like not obviously romantically, but like with my platonic, is that the word? Platonic friends, I've gotten closer to them because you do kind of have to pick and choose who you're going to spend time with, because you have to consider, when's the last time you were tested? Can we meet outside? Can we both wear masks? Can we sit over here and you sit over here? So it's not like before where you can just meet up with whoever and have a drink and maybe more people come, and so then no one really gets to connect with anyone because there's like now 5 or 6 of us having a drink versus just one-on-one. So I do think, this time has brought me closer to a lot of my friends.
It's definitely quality over quantity, where you're starting to realize, like, who's my family? Like, who am I really connected to? Like, if I only have one person I'm going to hang with or 2 people, like, who am I going to have those soul conversations with?
Exactly. So every episode we name it. What do you think should be the name of this episode then?
I think I'll always feel that all of us aren't connected enough, not only to each other, but to ourselves.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I don't know if that's not being vulnerable enough or if that's just not being awake enough. It's just a matter of what are you willing to lean into, because throughout our lives, we're always dealing with the enough of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not, and some of those are, we know what those are, we think about those on a daily, but some of them we're not even awake to. Like you say, like, we're more connected than ever because of the World Wide Web, and yet we're completely missing the opportunity to truly, truly connect with each other because we're too afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like not connected enough and then thinking of it not only with others but with ourselves. I think you hit it on the head with that one, because it's that vulnerability that we all kind of strive for or struggle with, and that really being the thing, because it is sometimes really hard to connect with yourself more than anything.
Right.
Sometimes people, I think, find it easier to connect with others but find it hard to either admit what's going on inside with them, or be alone sometimes and be alone with those thoughts and those feelings. So connecting with yourself is also.
Yeah, that's why storytelling is my favorite. One of my ultimate favorite things to do is to host dinner parties at my house and to just sit down and have real conversations, because that allows me to hear the feelings and ideas of my friends. Not like their highlight reel. They don't come in wearing a filter. It's just them. It's just them in the raw, and they're really expressing themselves. I get to express myself. And in hearing their stories, it normalizes how I'm feeling. It's like, okay, I'm not the only one who feels sad during this time, or I'm not the only one who's going through this. And when that connection is made, because there is that authentic vulnerability and just, again, connection, it allows you to go back and connect with yourself. Like, oh, I don't have to be this perfect person, or it's okay that I felt this way. And I think that's what's so beautiful about when we can really have real human interactions.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think that's the perfect way to end this and what we're calling the episode. Not connected enough. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Liz. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Of course. And so everyone can find you on Instagram at Liz Hernandez.
That's correct.
And then wordiful.com.
Correct.
Thank you.
Gracie, thank you.
Today's afterthought is about the idea of what it means to be a tomboy. Both Liz and I referred to ourselves as being tomboys when we were younger, and that got me thinking. Where does the term come from, and what does it really mean? According to Wikipedia, tomboy was originally referred to brash, boisterous, and self-assured youth. Today, it refers to the idea that there are girl activities in clothing, and there are boy activities in clothing. Tomboyism can be seen as both refusing gender roles and traditional gender conventions, but also conforming to gender stereotypes. It's a catch-22 of sorts. I personally dislike gender normative ideas and think they can be especially harmful when referring to children and babies. This is a big topic, and I can probably talk about it at length, but for the purpose of this afterthought, I just wanted to throw this out there. Can we just let little girls and little boys be? Can we let little girls play rough, ride bikes, wear blue, and have G.I. Joes if they want to without labeling them a tomboy? Can we let boys cry, dance, wear pink, and have Barbies if they want to without making them feel ashamed of their choices? Don't we want to raise independent, brave children who are confident in their likes and dislikes? I personally felt and still feel not girly enough because of societal definitions of what a woman should wear, how she should act, and what she should like. Logically, I know this is bullshit, but the little girl inside me still thinks that she should love dresses and be better at makeup to feel like a real woman. I'm confident in my womanhood, but those thoughts still creep in my head from time to time, and I wouldn't wish that on any other little girl. But it's all easier said than done. Ever try to buy a child a toy? Every time I shop for my nephew, I'm surprised by the glaring differences in boys' toys versus girls' toys. Everything in the boys section is blue. Trucks, dinosaurs, cars, and everything in the girls section is pink. Unicorns, dolls, jewelry. I try to get him gender-neutral things, but he's 4, and he's already been sucked into that boy world of toys. So my compromise is getting him science toys or books or things to keep him active. Just trying to stay away from feeding into the this is what you should like because you're a boy thing. I don't know. That's what I try to do, at least. I don't have kids of my own, so I don't know how hard this is when you actually have children at home who might want the pink stuff over the blue stuff, and that's okay too. What are your thoughts on this? I don't really have the answers. I would just love to hear your thoughts because it's something that's definitely been on my mind since this interview. So if you have any thoughts, please share them on our Instagram page, Not Blank Enough Pod. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Not Blank Enough. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. And follow us on Instagram at Not Blank Enough Pod. Until next time, thank you for listening. Check the show notes for links and info about today's guest. This episode was produced during the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 and recorded remotely. Our show today was produced by Gracie Mercedes and Dave Hill and edited by Douglas Sarine and Colleen Beasley. Not Blank Enough is a Gumption Pictures production.